Hi, it's Janet Fitch, and it's Writing Wednesday, where I answer questions from uh, struggling or not struggling writers. I think every writer is a struggling writer, so uh, myself included. And I'm open to your questions. But today I thought I would. We had some questions from last week about gesture, which is I encourage the writer to amass this information in a notebook. So you could call this the writer's notebook. There's like one of my notebooks, and this one is one that has portraits, landscapes, and landscapes in it. And why do we gather this stuff up? Is so that when we're sitting in a room by ourselves, especially during an epidemic, we have such a compendium of information that we've already assembled of landscapes and light and sounds and smells and information about things we've observed about people, and you catch them and you write them down in your little notebook that you carry around with them, and then hi Linda, and then you get them into, hi Christy, then you get them into a ring binder so that I need a gesture, I need an expression. I reach into my bookcase and I grab the notebook that I know it's in, and I have a library of observations that I've made over the years that I can use. One of our readers has said that there are actual dictionaries of these things available. Hi, Toby. Hey, Gail. There are dictionaries that you can buy that have this kind of stuff in them, but there's no replacement for amassing this yourself, because what you're doing is you're training your eye to noticing, then you're challenging yourself to come up with language to describe something, and then you're putting in a place where you can use it, and it's your own stuff. It's not borrowed. Hey Peggy, it's not borrowed from anyone else. It's yours to keep. You'll use it all your life. So when we talked last time, we were talking about characterization, basically, gesture. Hi, Lika. When you travel, and hopefully we will all be traveling again someday, and you don't speak the language, you realize how much information is being carried by gesture, expression, and tone of voice. You can get your point across. You can buy mustard if you can't say mustard. Hi, Megan. The emotion thesaurus. Yeah. So these things we develop ourselves have much more meaning for us, much more connection to the kind of writing we're going to do. So super, super valuable. And so I remember trying to buy mustard in the south of France once, and I have zero French. Russian is my language. I might have a spattering of Spanish, but no French at all. And I wanted to buy mustard, and I just couldn't find it in this shop. And hi Courtney, and I did the whole thing and found mustard. The lady with the shop understood what I was talking about. Most of dialogue, the communication between human beings is non-verbal. It is gesture and observation, facial expression, tone of voice. And yet when we read people's stuff, it is like reading a screenplay. We get the utterance and maybe a couple stage directions, but writing is all about writing dialogue scenes. Is the spoken word should be the smallest. Hi Lisa. It should be hi Courtney. It should be the smallest amount in bulk of your scene should be in the blah, blah, blah. And the rest should be internal thoughts, but gesture, facial expression, tone of voice. This is stuff that needs your kind of your eye and your ear to recalibrate and notice how much you can convey. Last week I talked about a scene in a John le Carre book that was just masterful, where there's a lot of indirection. The boss control is talking to a spy, and he's getting his point across. Then he's going and worrying about the coffee, and the guy finally gives him a direct statement, like, what are you really, this is not true, or, there's no point in pursuing this, everybody's dead. And then control looked at his hands for a while, and then he finally spoke. So the gesture controlled the scene, because whoever controls the silence controls the scene. That's grabbing the ping pong of dialogue, and you have a silence. You've kept it. It's like a bee buzzing in your hand, and you decide when to let it go. And the gestures are a wonderful place to handle that kind of moment. But gesture tells you, is so telling. Hi, Max. It's so wonderful, and it tells you so much. So how do you do these observations? Gesture is really fun if we are ever in a faculty meeting again, a board meeting, a parent-teacher group, or any kind of a group. When you're bored, not that I wasn't paying perfect attention, but it's a perfect place to describe gesture and how people are seated. Are they forward? Are they back? How are they crossing their legs? Are they uncomfortable? Are they leaning their knee up? We don't think much about it in those moments, but when you're sitting around trying to embody your character, and you can go and you can have a gesture like propping the knee against the desk of, say, somebody who's very long-legged and they can't cross their legs under the table. That's a really interesting gesture. The person who grabs their ankle, that's what I'm doing right now, grabbing their ankle, and what kind of a closed gesture is that? Somebody crosses their arms like this while you're talking to them. Well, that's a very telling gesture, right? I wanted to point out a fantastic book, if people aren't familiar with this. Desmond Morris was a student of human anthropologist, I believe, and a curator of mammals at the London Zoo, and wrote a book called The Naked Ape. And this is full of gestures. It tells you kind of the psychological meaning of gestures. I'm going to turn this around so you can see. This page. Here we go. So say the gesture is cut off. So this blocks incoming signals when we are under stress. So that is blocking. That's a cutoff. It's like, what do? You lower your eyes, you cover your face. So this is a wonderful book of gestures, and really what they are signifying. Different hand gestures. There was the one that I really like, where you mirror, old friends will mirror each other when they talk. But this ability to, like, drawing your legs up, I would describe this gesture when I had two kids talking. So they wouldn't just be out there floating in mid-ocean. They would have their gestures. People could see that, and that's a kind of a gawky thing where they don't want their legs to touch because they're not, like, actually boyfriend and girlfriend yet. They want actually somebody to hold them, so they hold themselves. There's a lot of stroking kind of gestures. The way people uh, gaze behavior, the different ways people look at each other. Um, uh, the and what it all means. And I recommend this, barrier signals. This is a one you can see all the time in barrier signals. It's when they cross their arms, say to touch a bag. They're not really worried their bag is going to fall. Reassuring the self and barring somebody who is looking at them. Men will cross by touching their cuffs. I mean, this is an invaluable book. It's called Man Watching to Human Behavior. And what's important about a book like this is not simply to use it, but to use the inspiration, and then it starts calibrating your eyes so that you look around, you see that gesture. You're starting to see that these gestures have meaning. Very, very worthwhile. You can get it at a used bookstore online. Just keep an eye out for it. Mine is, of course, falling apart, but it is really to get an idea of, think about how close people stand together. Or, I mean, right now, that's going to be a marker of this era. Hi, Elson. This is it'll be a marker of our era when we see a line, when we see that 6-foot spacing, we'll know exactly what's going on. Oh, that was 2020. I remember that. So it's really important to collect your own gestures. And one of the ways you don't necessarily see the gestures in still photography very often. I use a lot of still photography to do research from. Usually they avoid those gestures. They're composed for different things. So it's good to watch people talking. Good in, when we can get back to physical reality and look at people and notice how they're moving, how they're sitting, what are they doing with their hands in terms of their, especially in terms of their conversation, what's going on. Courtney, why? Why what? Why is it important? Because we're writers and we need our characters to be able to express things beyond just blah, 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 blah. You see them doing stuff like, what an actor would call business. An actor never just sits there. They're always doing something. And the best way to do that probably now is to watch movies with the remote and start noticing gestures. How does somebody take a ball and they're playing with it? Write that down, get it down, stop, freeze frame, and what is going on with that? And then when you're writing a scene, maybe 2 years later, and you need a good gesture, you have it in your book. You can find the gesture. It makes the communication so much better. Especially when the gesture adds meaning. So if somebody is, temples their fingers, that's kind of a prissy gesture, and when they pat it like this, it's like not only are they prissy, but they want you to hurry up. So if you're in there talking to the deacon or something, and he's like, oh, it's like, wrap it up, here is the church. But then you have to find language. What is this? I mean, I can show you this gesture, but how would you describe it? And that would take on meaning. The narrator's description helps it takes on the coloration of the protagonist's mood, the observer's mood. So, you're never going to stop using this. So I wanted to share some of the gestures that I have in my, I've amassed over the years. And a lot of this is faculty meetings and watching movies with the stop action, because you actually know what's going on. So the gestures are very useful. Because your characters can't just talk. They've got to be physically, they've got to be physically present. So here's an example. Here are, okay, those are voices. We want gestures. I think gestures is next. So these are hands. Just because remember that there are 3 levels of landscape. In the first one, the sky is the actor, the scale. In the second, the human figure is the scale, is the actor, and in the intimate level, the hand is the actor. So it's very important that you observe hands, what they look like, and then gestures. So these are just hands that I've noticed. Small hands with scaly backs, plump fingers on which the wedding ring constricts, long unmanicured nails, gray underneath, nails on right hand of different lengths. I'm just taking hands so that I can give this hand to somebody, the height of elegance with the 3-inch nails, even if you drive a bus. Men with manicures, agents and indulgent businessmen. Men with long fingernails, rock musicians and Rastafarians muttering schizophrenics, ordinary Chinese man at the save-on with one long little nail. I could give that to somebody all day long, right? So these are just different kinds of hands, different how they feel when you shake hands with them. People who miss parts of their hands, fingertips, tend to be professionals, carpenters. What do I have? Carpenters, printers, and machinists are often missing pieces of their hands. So that's something you can give a character. Tip of his finger because of a printer's accident. Tattoo on the web. I mean, really look at hands. Think about them. Small, fleshy hands seem like a crudely sensual personality. Long, bony hands seem skeletal, removed from the world. So this kind of observation keeps you away from the cliche. The long fingers like a pianist, the cliche, if anybody hasn't been there for this. Hi, Katie. If anybody hasn't been there for my introductory talk, anything you have ever seen before is a cliche and can't be used. So when you're trying to describe stuff, you have to think of your own language, your own way of describing it. So this kind of work is really training your writer muscles to come up with fresh descriptions or direct observations, something fresh, not just thinking, oh, long hands, pianist fingers. No, let's find something else. Let's see what you actually got when you saw those hands. Gnarled old hands, crippled with arthritis, sometimes studded with beautiful rings, like tree roots with mushrooms growing on them. Wonder who that was. Big white chapped men's hands, sexy as a moldy dishcloth. So that's just enormously long thumbs, the urge to power. If you read anything about palmistry, you don't have to trot out all the Mount of Venus and stuff, but it gives you some idea of what you might have to say about hands and, a personality who might be associated with it. I have a wonderful book on Chinese face reading that I use all the time. uh, Chinese face reading looks at the shape of noses, where moles are, the shape of the face, for different, and ascribes different personality traits to it. And it doesn't have to be true. It's just interesting. And, what it says that somebody has like a big, fleshy nose or long earlobes. What a person, Chinese or no, might ascribe to that. It's interesting. It's a way, and it's memorable. It's something that people will remember. That the woman with the big fleshy nose. That's money. You know, uh, not something we think about. We think big. Who knows? Um, so let's talk about gestures. If you notice somebody, if somebody's making a gesture, it catches your eye, grab that gesture and, get it down and then get it into the notebook, into this gesture subcategory. Um, Drawing with finger in carpet, on bedspread, on your leg, somebody else's leg, in spilled water on a tablecloth. That's something, as somebody is speaking, they can be drawing something in spilled water on the tablecloth or whatever. That's an interesting, and it will bring your scene alive. These gestures just wake the whole thing up because it's the close observation that the reader trusts that this is somebody who is really watching and really alert. Gestures, somebody who never looks at you directly. I know two people who are lovely people, but they cannot look you in the eye when they talk to you. They're always out off one side, and it's kind of it's a little unnerving. Or if you know somebody who's wall-eyed, you're always trying to figure out which eye is looking at you. It's interesting, and people will remember that person. Outlining someone's facial features with their finger as you talk to them. They're like outlining your face or something. That's kind of a loving gesture. Feeling a piece of cloth for quality. Think of all the things that can be done with your hands. Throwing the hand. Nuts. I can show you, but it's finding language that's the important thing. The air wipe. Forget it. Like trying to erase the other person with a blackboard eraser. You've seen that. Just trying to get rid of you. So grab them. We all are familiar with these gestures, but we don't necessarily think of them when we're writing a scene, right? Swat the air like swatting a fly, shooing away an idea when you're very agitated. It's like, I don't want to know about that. I don't want to hear about that. Closing eyes when distraught, covering face with the hands. That's that isolating gesture, that protective gesture. Face slapping, grabbing the lapels, arms flung wide in joy and triumph. Arguing toe to toe. The person will come right up and bump your toes, stick their face in your face. Kneeling with arms extended, palms up. Grappling to the ground, hair pulling. Kneeling with head bowed, head to the wall, I give up. Watch out for thumbs up and thumbs down. Really gets to be a cliche. Watch out for the eye roll. That's a cliche. Everybody does the eye roll. No eye rolling. Never. No more. That's interesting. Women scream in panic, men in pain. I don't know if that's true, but it certainly seemed true to me at the time. Body cross, checking the purse, the cufflinks. Reading with the hands on either side of the head like blinkers, like this. See, I shouldn't act it out. If I say it, that should be enough. Then on subway car where everyone stands with their eyes averted. underreacting, the frozen smile. So nice to see you. The crooked smile, trying to smile but heart not in it. The eyes smile but the mouth won't. Eyes angry but hands pleading. Trust the hands. Then the believability scale in times of contradictory signals. This might have been from man watching. Involuntary system, sweating, crying, respiration. Always believe that. That's number one. 2, leg and foot, the lower part of the body under the table, foot twitching, flapping, toe tapping, small aggressive kicks. Leg shifts. I mean, that's a great thing to have somebody kick you under the table in a scene. Kick, the character kicks the other character under the table. The body is active in these gestures. Then there's the trunk. So you go from foot, always believe the legs and the foot. Then you come up to trunk, which is, are they sagging? Are they slumping? Do they lean forward? Consciously stretching and straightening to contract that slump. So they're depressed, but they're trying to keep it together. Then you go to general gestures like jabbing at the air, specific gestures that we're used to, like thumbs up or peace sign. Not very believable, kind of phony many a time. Facial expressions can be very deceptive. Smiling when you don't mean it, a lot of women. Hey, hi. Or we mean it, but we don't. It's like, why are you that happy to see me? I remember going to Russia, and they were just super unnerved by how all the Americans were so smiley. It's like, well, what? It's like they're trying to sell me something. This is, they smile when there's something to be happy about. So we have set pieces: the smile, the laugh, the frown, the pout, the coy expression, looking down, coupled with so that's demure, looking down, but the bold stare under the brows. That can be controlled. And then what the person says finally is like the least believable. So you start with the body and you go all the way up. Nose touch is like a momentary stress when one's words don't match one's thoughts, or else they could have terrible allergies. I don't know. But all the different things that we do, the nose touch, the fist to lip, hands, whisk out like a platter, like island and hula, like it's all yours, be my guest. Tries to pin you with his eyes, brushing off crumbs, cat hair. Some people are always covered with cat hair. Would that be hilarious? I mean, somebody brushing off the cat hair. There he is, Donald with the cat hair. Or somebody brushing cat hair off you. That's pretty funny. Tucking the tag in the back of your shirt. The helpful woman friend, or even a stranger, but a nice, kind of somebody who's tending people. Tucks your tags in. Feel the back there's all these ear gestures, feeling the back of the ear, pull the earlobe, rub the eyebrows back and forth. And then it's like, when do they do that? Why do they do that? Watch the movies, the hand chop, cut the crap, the holding a glass, the need for control. Hand scissors, some people beat every word while they're talking, blah, 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 blah. They're going to beat a dead horse. And then all kinds of laughter, keep track of how different people's laughter sounds. I mean, that'll be a huge help to you. When lying, what do people do? When lying, less use of hands to emphasize points. In normal conversation, we wave our hands around. When lying, we're afraid our hands will give us away. So when hands are frozen, hidden, stuffed in the pockets, jangling coins, holding them down, the character can see that and go, something is amiss. People touch their faces more when they're lying because they're under stress. You know, they press their lips, they cover their mouth, touch the nose, rub the cheek, scratch the eyebrow, pull earlobe, groom hair, especially mouth cover when people are lying. Interesting. More body shifts when people are lying. So you can watch your kids. So anyway, this is just some gestures that I've noticed from watching really good actors in movies. And then, but anytime you catch a random good gesture, do grab it. And then we do voices. And voices are so... Why do we so rarely see vocal quality in fiction? To describe somebody's voice, I mean, it's like it's a musical instrument. You know, if it was a musical instrument, what instrument would it be? Is it is it a bassoon? Is it a French horn? Is it an oboe? Thin and reedy, but penetrating. You know, when you hear people talk, really try to characterize their voice and the way they speak. And a really good way to do this is not only in the movies, which you can freeze, but watching the news, because those people just go on and on, right? There's talking heads. So can you describe that person's vocal tics, the sound of their voice, the pitch of their voice, and the texture of their voice? So here's a few. I have pages of these. I've just taken people around me that I know very well, and really bear down to try to describe them. So here was a family member, clear, high voice, unexpectedly assertive and precise. So it's not just enough to give us their range, you know, but it's like, what's the quality that's memorable? Here's a friend of mine, nasal whine with a childlike flavor, speaks slowly. There's hesitation, but also assertion. Do you really think so? I've decided. Sample phrases. Here's somebody, a man, high, aggressive, boyish voice, speaks rapidly, impatient, always on the edge of anger, a sharp bite, a woody quality. Nothing's ever good enough for you. That's a sample phrase. Here's a woman, plump, telephone voice, conversational, chest rich, cheerful, friendly, rich undertones, not listening, talks while she does something else. Traits, like Yam says gal, taken to speaking softly, then angry when you don't hear her. Rich, warm laugh, serious, responsible, mature woman's voice. Here's an older man, pedantic voice, gone wandering with time, pregnant with pauses, vague, gotten a little drier with age, the click of false teeth. It's been my impression that. Here's a man, rich and melodious, but intentionally so. Hears himself talking, caresses you with his voice. Another one, very like that as well, but even more so, very private, sensitive, quick to apologize, an actor's voice. Frequently drops into Cockney, German, Freud, Peter Lorre, doing a lot of actory things there. Here's a German friend, deep, analytical sounding voice. Yeah, serious, intelligent. Another one, enthusiastic, girlish, often confidential, laughs easily. Here's another woman, Midwestern plain talk. A generation back, she'd say ain't. Tries for soft, but plain is more like it. anyway, just here's one: a high, light woman's voice, very soft and caring, a nurturing voice, a little breathy, a little innocent, but with an Eastern well-bred lilt, musical. And then actors, do actors, do singers, can you describe Dan Rather, the deep, sincere tones of the Midwesterner, the slight hint of the Texan? Here's Tom Brokaw. I don't know if you remember him. He was a newscaster. The typical deepened TV reporter voice, but there's a speech eccentricity, the swallowed L. Listen up. Dallas instead of Dallas. Leslie Stahl, this thin blade-like nasality of the Washington beat reporter. Barbara Walters, the concerned, crisp elocution, the speech impediment similar to Brokaw's lockjaw. Well, but you see, I can give that voice to anyone. Once I have it, I can give that to my mother-in-law. I mean, my character's mother-in-law, or a teacher, or, anybody I want. So this stuff is so useful. I've just done this for I do singers, Ricky Lee Jones. What is that voice like? Street smart voice, slurred in hipness, but also soft and capable of great tenderness. A voice for a bar in the afternoon at the beach. Billie Holiday, sensual, plays with the sounds, the music, the depth of experience and feelings, very rich, style of slurring, drugged, hip. Janis Joplin, screaming blues singer, alive with scars and wounds. See, that's a voice with some texture to it. Hi, Brittany. So what you want to do is just develop a sense of the rhythm of people's speech, fast, slow. How likely are they to interrupt? Are they aggressive? Here's Marilyn Monroe. She reminds me of another person that I have in here. Breathy, high and girlish, slow. It's a slow and breathy voice, which is really interesting. Can you do, what does Jack Nicholson sound like? What does Bogart sound like? Bogart sounds like a tough guy, always seemed to be talking with a toothpick in his mouth. A lot like Jack Nicholson, actually. Geraldine Page, quick rhythm, surprisingly girlish, a rush of words, vulnerable pauses. So that's obviously her in her roles. I'm not saying that as a person she's like that. So you just want to amass as many voices as you can so that you can give them to people. This is work. This is like doing reps at the gym. This is the work of writing, is listening and finding language to describe things. Get it out of the little notebook or off of the yellow legal pad if you're watching TV, and type it up and get it into your notebook so that it will be usable. Otherwise, it just disappears. And what's the point of that? And then just doing portraits. You see people and just challenge yourself to describe that person. The large-boned grown-up kid, tanned and physically impressive, but his apologetic, uncertain demeanor belies the body. He's a good fellow who could use a shot of masculine arrogance which other men overflow with. He hunches, head forward, whiny, boyish voice. You give that to a minor character. You could base a character. You could give that to anybody with a certain quality. That's nice. Katie's description of Marilyn Monroe's voice or just her. So these, I have portraits. I probably have 100 pages in here of portraits. This is training. This is, hi Anna. So this is training yourself to describe things. We're so used to seeing things in images, in the war between the image and the word. We need to see if we can describe, see if we can return to the word and be able to describe something that if a person couldn't see it or hear it, that you could be vivid enough that they would see that. It's super, super useful. So anything that you'd like me to say about using these gestures, using these little bits you save, it's really, really important. Yeah, a person with a small range of gestures, you can't, you just have to you have to describe them. It's the same gesture, but every time he's doing something, you have to see what they're up to, and it's you find different language to describe the same thing. Oh, any other questions? The episode where he says the higher the hands on the face, the worse the relationship. Right, but you want to have it on a character's face. Well, I am happy to take questions for next week. So if you have questions you would like me to talk about next week, leave them in comments. And thank you so much for coming to Writing Wednesday. And these will be, I'm putting a bunch of these up on my YouTube channel. So Janet Fitch's Writing Wednesday on YouTube. Sometimes it's easier to find them again in that format. And meanwhile, I hope you have good writing, and we'll see you next week.